Good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining this presentation for prospective students entitled The Value of a Liberal Arts Education at Boston College. My name is John Mahoney. I'm the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at Boston College, and I'll be your host for the program. Now, most of you who are joining us this evening have done some preliminary research on Boston College, and you know that it's a Jesuit Catholic university. And since the first Jesuits began operating colleges and universities some 500 years ago, they emphasized the power, the value, and the critical importance of a broadly based liberal arts education. This is manifested today at Boston College through our core curriculum, which exposes students to a broad array of subject areas, ideas, and ways of looking at the world. You will, of course, pursue a major when you get here, maybe even a double major, but we believe that liberal arts education is crucial to developing the analytical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills which are essential in a world ever changing due to the impact of technology and now a pandemic. But in addition to this important skill set, liberal arts education offers students the chance to confront questions about who they are, what kinds of lives they want to lead, and what kind of impact they might have on the world. Our presentation tonight will run for about 45 minutes, and you're welcome to submit questions through the Q&A function through Zoom. We will try to address as many of those questions as we can before we conclude the presentation at 7 p.m. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished faculty panel, and they are joined by three current Boston College students. Brian Garreau is Associate Professor of Sociology and International Studies, and Professor Garreau earned his PhD at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Professor Garreau was named Associate Dean for the Core in 2018, which means that he oversees the university core curriculum, and he chairs the Core Renewal Committee at Boston College. And you're going to learn a lot more about the Core Renewal program as this presentation continues. Professors Marianne Cherba and Tracy Regan will be teaching one of this fall's linked pairs of courses in our Core Renewal program. These courses are taken by the same group of 19 students and include evening reflection sessions during the course of the semester. Taken together, the courses fulfill two core curriculum requirements. The linked courses, which will be taught by Professor Cherba and Professor Regan, focus on the legal and economic aspects of healthcare in the United States. One of these courses is titled Life, Liberty, and Health, and the other is entitled Life, Money, and Health. Marianne Cherba is Professor of the Practice in the Boston College Law School. She earned her JD from the Boston College Law School. She also holds a master's in public health and a doctorate of science in health policy from the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. Tracy Regan is Professor of the Practice in the Economics Department at Boston College. She earned her PhD in economics from the University of Arizona, and she is the Director of the Undergraduate Studies in the Economics Department here at Boston College. At this point, it is a pleasure to turn the program over to Professor Brian Garreau.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you all of you in the audience for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the core curriculum and also to introduce you to some of our amazing faculty and students who have taught an Enduring Questions course and have taken an Enduring Questions course. I think we can turn it over to my PowerPoint now, and I'll run through a little bit about the core renewal program that John explained. We're getting there. These are the joys of Zoom. There we go. Thank you very much. So as John mentioned, the core curriculum is at the heart of the undergraduate experience at Boston College. And that's why it's called the core. It's at the heart. And that's also why the core is a central feature in Boston College's strategic plan, Ever to Excel. Can you turn the slide, please? It's because the 15 requirements that make up the core is not a group of general education requirements easily replaced by an AP exam. At BC, we think of it as being so much more than this. The core is really designed to provide students with a foundational, interdisciplinary educational experience rooted in the Jesuit Catholic mission of the university, to teach students about the social and natural sciences and the humanities, and to help students begin to discern who they are, to grapple with questions of faith and reason, and to start the journey of discovering what the world needs of them. Next slide, please. Now, there are many excellent courses in our core, but some of them are truly distinctive BC courses, if you will. And some are designed specifically for first-year students, such as the complex problems and enduring questions courses. Tonight, we will talk about some of those distinctive courses, and those will be the complex problems and enduring questions. So, complex problems and enduring questions are for first years only, as I mentioned. They both fulfill 2 core requirements, and some even fulfill a third through cultural diversity. In fact, the course we are going to hear about tonight, the course pairs that we're going to hear about tonight, will fulfill cultural diversity as well. Complex problems courses are 6 credits in total, in which 2 instructors from 2 different disciplines share the lecture. They have a weekly hands-on lab component that's taught by a 3rd instructor, a core fellow, and there are weekly reflection sessions in which students get together with faculty in order to think about and talk about the material that they're learning in the lectures in the labs, to see what it means to them, to reflect on why it's important to who they are and what they think about the world around them. Next slide, please. Enduring questions are 2 paired courses taught separately by 2 different instructors, but they're connected through the question that binds them together. The same students take both sides of both of the courses, and all the students attend reflection sessions 4 times during the semester. And we'll be hearing more about one of these enduring questions pairs tonight. Next slide, please. Complex problems engage with contemporary complex problems, such as climate change, issues around race and violence, and ethics and engineering. Here's a list of the complex problems courses that we're offering in the fall this semester, and 4 of the 10 paired enduring questions courses that we're offering. Enduring questions such as what it means to be human, the natural and artistic questions around living in cities on the water, and what it means that great heroes like George Washington and King David are revered and yet have personal flaws are explored in these courses. Now, students and faculty talk about complex problems and enduring questions as being life-changing, as helping students decide on a major, as opening them up to whole new ways of viewing the world, to stimulating personal reflections on their own faith and religious beliefs, to introducing them to a trusted group of friends outside of their dorms. Next slide, please. We have some quotes here that really reflect some of that insight that we've gotten over the years. We've been offering these courses since the fall of 2015, and they've been a major success. The process of renewal has been wonderful in Boston College, and it's been led by these kinds of courses, where students are talking about learning new perspectives, things that they didn't even know that they needed, that these are a great introduction to the liberal arts, to a Jesuit education, that the courses are helping students feel excited about learning about things that are bigger than themselves, and that they're grateful for the opportunity to participate in a program that's opening them up to new ways of thinking in a inviteful way. Next slide, please. They're learning that going to college is about more than getting a job. In fact, if you come to Boston College, this is something you'll hear from the Vice President of Mission and Ministry, that we're not here to get you a job. We're here to help you become the full person that you're meant to be. Next slide, please. And that they're appreciating that they're learning about out-of-the-box thinking, that they're gaining different skills that are becoming helpful, both in school and after school on the job market, that they feel proud and feel like they belong through these courses, through the positive learning environment. And we'll hear a lot about that from our students tonight, I believe. And for students that are struggling with the transition from high school to college, these courses can provide a real environment for them to make friends, to learn more about who they are. We provide field trip opportunities for faculty to take students off campus. And actually, following this year, that's probably something that the incoming class will actually be able to do. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Professors Regan and Churba. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian. I am Professor Tracy Regan, as Brian said. I'm a professor in economics, and I'm just going to give you a brief little kind of view, at least in my opinion, with respect to the Enduring Questions classes that are part of BC's Renewed Core. And then we'll return back to the slides, and then Professor Marianne Churba will take a moment to talk through things a bit more, and then we're going to pose some questions to the students we had in the fall of 2018, I guess it was. So as Brian was saying, this Renewed Core curriculum and the Enduring Question class that Professor Churba and I teach is truly an interdisciplinary approach to the liberal arts education. So I think interdisciplinary is very much a buzzword in academia, but there's not much kind of meat behind that, whereas this truly is. It was incredible when we were in the process of applying to teach in this particular program. I found out that there was this law professor who taught largely on the Newton campus who had exactly the same interests as myself. I mean, it was uncanny to see how perfectly aligned our interests were in the healthcare industry. And that was really exciting to me, to get to know someone from a different part of campus, because often you get siloed into your particular department, and it just opened up BC to be an even bigger community of scholars and individuals that I actually have gotten to know. So I think the approach taken in these Enduring Questions and Complex Problems classes is especially attractive to incoming freshmen, because finally you feel like you're at the point in your academic curriculum where you're done with kind of the basic science, history, English, foreign language, etc. And this is a far more contemporary, timely approach to these particular areas of study. It's been entirely gratifying to teach in it. I usually teach a 300-person introductory econ class, and so having the opportunity to teach only 9 students was mind-boggling to me, that I could actually see all of their faces and get to know every single person in the classroom. It's a very intimate space. I think Marianne and I formed great relationships with our students, and that's reflected by them being willing to give an hour of their time over the course of summer vacation to actually meet with all of us tonight. I think these courses are a great way for seniors in high school to make that transition into college, that you get to know a community of people immediately that are all the same age as you, and you get immediate access to faculty members who really do in fact care a lot about you. And I will just put in a plug too for the faculty at BC, and I think Professor Churba is very much a representation of that. To have a law professor submit an application to teach undergrads is incredible to me. Moreover, freshmen. This is not always the desired category of student to teach, and I think it very much reflects the commitment and dedication the faculty at Boston College have to their students, both at the undergraduate and the graduate level. So with that, I'm gonna let Marianne kind of talk through some of the slides, and then I'll come back in a moment for some of the questions with our students. Thank you.
This has been a wonderful experience for me personally. Tracy and I developed a wonderful friendship and colleague relationship in designing these courses and presenting these courses, but it's also reinvigorated my whole approach to teaching health law at the law school. So I just want to tell you a bit about concretely what we do. We met as a group before the first year of offering this, and we were told to be in these pedagogical workshops, and I was like, we don't really need those, and they were wonderful. They were great. And we came up with these courses: Life, Money, and Health, the Economics of Healthcare, and also Life, Liberty, and Health, Policy, Politics, and Law. So we're talking about health, what it means to be healthy, what it means to have access to health care, the ability to pay for health care, and it is something that affects everybody. So next slide, please. Here's who we are, so you know that by now, and I'll just cruise right through that one. And if we could go to the next slide, please. Here are our students who will be joining us. Emily, Amy, and Madison. We do have men in the program. We do have many people in the program. Emily and Amy and Madison came to mind because of who they were coming in and what we know transpired for them, and what they've kept us abreast of in terms of their continuing adventures and the influence of the Enduring Questions course going forward. Emily and Amy and Madison all came in with one area of study. They bobbed and weaved and did a lot of different things since then. Emily and Madison, I'm looking forward to teaching in the fall in the Global Public Health Law course. They are in the Schiller Center's minor of Global Public Health and the Public Good, which I'm sure you'll find out more about through other sources. If you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so Tracy and I sat down and thought, like, let's design a really fun course. Fun for the students, but also fun for us. And we're lucky because our areas of expertise are so conducive to just bringing in the world and current events. And we were like two kids in a candy store. Let's do this, let's do that. We wanted to be sure to incorporate vaping and gun control. We knew these were issues that had immediately affected our students. We were also doing climate change, health and politics, palliative, end of life, hospice care, et cetera. Not that they're at that stage yet, thank goodness. But some of these topics we both covered from different angles. Some of these topics we covered together. And then some of these topics we explored in our separate classes, but with unifying themes and perspectives. So for instance, Tracy in the economics component did palliative, end of life, and hospice care. I did gun control. We both did the opioid crisis. We both did extended units on concussions. I was very proud. I was worried if we would get into trouble with the university because we were getting into university athletes and you know what sort of risks are involved there. But we were totally supported and encouraged to pursue this. Next slide, please. A key component of these courses are Thursday night reflection sessions where we step out of the classroom and do something different, but that in some way ties into our course content. And so Tracy took it upon herself to arrange for a yoga and meditation session. We all had to show up in our yoga gear. We purchased yoga mats for our students, so they walked off with instructions on how to do yoga, but also meditation, and most importantly, stress management. And we deliberately put this as our first Thursday reflection session because we wanted students to just have some tools to be very conscious of the need to manage stress and just to open up that issue in case somebody wanted to approach us and talk to us personally about anything that may have been a challenge for them. But it was a very fun way to get to know each other too, because at this time we were virtually all strangers to each other. Even the students didn't know each other that well, but it was a great bonding session. Next slide, please. Another evening panel we've done is to create an expert panel that ties into our course content. So in 2018, which was the first year we offered this, we did a panel on opioids, and that was sort of the big raging public health problem of the day. At that time, it was the biggest public health crisis facing America. And we brought in an assistant DA. We brought in the former police commissioner who now works at BC. Bill Evans, you may recognize his face. He was sort of the face of the police force during the Boston Marathon bombing. He's wonderful. And then we brought in a state legislator who's been working very hard on opioid issues. So it wasn't, we covered more of the medical stuff in our class, but this was sort of taking a different approach. And it wasn't so much law enforcement, but the way in which law could help respond to this problem in ways other than suing the opioid manufacturers, which we discussed in my component of the day class. Next slide, please. This year we did a panel on vaping, and we were in the midst of the epidemic of strange lung injuries befalling all sorts of people, especially young people. So we had a panel of experts from the Department of Public Health who specialize on tobacco and e-cigarette control. And Andy Tan came in, and he's at the Harvard School of Public Health. He was wonderful. People are so eager to come in. When they hear what this course is, they're so excited to come in and hang out with us for an evening. He has done so much incredible work on youth vaping and the use of social marketing to persuade students to think that this is not a risky activity when it is. So it was a wonderful evening. Next panel. Next slide, please. And then we had another reflection session, which was sort of movie night, popcorn and candy, and we watched and reflected on a movie. But our culminating event was a farm to table outing, and we actually tied it into the curriculum, although we had a great time having dinner out at a great restaurant. But we also discussed the importance of the farm to table movement, both in terms of health and wellness, but also as a sustainable business model. And so the owner of the business came out and talked to us about exactly what's involved in doing that and keeping it up and running and profitable. Next slide, please. And that's it. That is concretely a very fast version of what we've done in class. But I guess, Tracy, you're gonna take it from here with some questions for our wonderful students.
Perfect. Yeah. So we put together a few questions that we'll pose the women that are joining us. And then in that 15-minute interval towards the end, we'll take in questions from the audience as well. So I wanted to ask Emily, first of all, so how were these classes, I guess the one in particular that Professor Turbin and I taught, different from other classes you've had at BC, and maybe especially those that were part of the core curriculum?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing that comes to mind is we took this class first semester, freshman year. So the small environment in combination with the fact that it was all freshmen was really an outlet for all of us to kind of come together and be like, we're all in the same boat. Coming in as a freshman, you're trying to figure out how to live with a roommate, how to work the dining hall. And we had this 15-minute interval in between the two sections of our classes that were back to back. And we would just talk about life, talk about what we had for breakfast, talk about the class material. And it was just really comforting to have these other 18 familiar faces walking around campus. And to this day, we're in the same classes, we're in the same clubs, we have a lot of the same interests. And that was something coming in as a freshman that was super important to me. The second thing, you guys are going to hear the word interdisciplinary a lot, I know, but I think for me, this was one of the most valuable things that I got out of this class. I think there's this misconception that you just come into college, figure out your major, and that's your area of study, that's your career path. And as Professor Turba can attest to, I've changed my major 5 times, so that one path thing wasn't really for me, but this class kind of opened up a completely new way of thinking for me. And I think it made me realize at the end of the day, when we graduate and we're out in jobs trying to figure out problems or trying to learn about new things, the only way to really progress that and move forward is to understand every single angle. And healthcare, for example, it's a legal issue, it's a social issue, it's an economics issue, and this class kind of introduces you into, and all the Enduring Questions class introduce you into critically thinking about things in a different way. And I think as a result of that, and the structure of the class based around conversation, as someone who loves to talk, this conversation base was pretty enjoyable for me. But I just remember leaving class, like we would have these conversations and I would just leave and be like, this is bothering me. Like I need to go talk about this. I would call my mom and like rant about healthcare inequalities or tell my roommate about like the concussion paper I was writing. And I think that was just so empowering to really be excited about something and want to have a conversation about it. And then quickly, last thing, I think also what was unique about this class was we all had different majors. We signed up for this class simply because we had an interest in healthcare or economics, and that really brought conversations to life because we had people who were political science majors, Amy, EMT, like everyone kind of really put their perspective in, and it really brought together the culture of interdisciplinary learning at BC.
Amazing. Thanks, Emily. And then maybe I'll ask Amy if after taking this class, if anything changed for you personally or academically in kind of the next semesters that you've been at BC.
Yeah, absolutely. As Emily can attest to, or as she said, my major path has not been a straight one. I came in as a psychology major. I mean, I've stayed pre-med the whole time, but I was a psychology major. And after taking this wonderful course with these two wonderful professors, I did decide to switch my major to economics, where I hung out there for about a year before finally landing on psychology yet again. However, my love for economics has not dwindled. In fact, I'm taking a course this fall called Public Policy in an Aging Society in the economics department, which, while it might not quote unquote count for anything for me anymore, not as an econ major, it's still one that I'm incredibly excited to take. And that's thanks to Professor Reagan opening my eyes to how healthcare and economics really do go hand in hand. But I would say even more tangibly, this course has impacted my time at BC because it inspired me to take another course that you can take either your freshman or sophomore year, but mostly your sophomore year, called Pulse. It's a service learning course that fulfills both the philosophy and theology requirements of the core curriculum. And me, and actually Emily too, we served at St. Francis House Foot Clinic in a homeless shelter. And yes, we genuinely worked with homeless people's feet. And I'm sure Emily can attest, we both absolutely fell in love with it. But I would say the biggest impact this course had on my time at the Foot Clinic at St. Francis House was it equipped me with this foundational level of knowledge about the healthcare industry, be it the opioid epidemic, be it the Affordable Care Act, and so much more. I felt like I was able to have these higher level conversations about a topic I never would have thought possible at 19 years old. And so I'm incredibly grateful to this course for that. And so I'm grateful for the diversity of lenses we were able to approach the healthcare industry, right? As a pre-med, I was so happy and excited to learn about the healthcare industry, and never did I think that it would come from two classes, neither of which were natural science classes.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy. And I have to say, when I ran into Emily at the beginning of the fall semester, and she was telling me about her interest in her placement that Amy is also involved with through the Pulse program, I was like, you want to deal with feet? And she was so excited about dealing with feet. And this is someone who's not a pre-med major. So I think that is so genuine and earnest in both Amy and Emily's kind of involvement in community activities through that program there. And I know Madison has done a lot too with the Pulse program, but specifically I wanted to ask Madison if any of the kind of components of the liberal arts education, and again, you can think about this core curriculum, how that has, again, affected you personally, academically, and then ultimately, I think professionally, it'll probably play into what you choose to do as well. So if you could comment on that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I'll start academically. Taking this course first semester freshman year just totally shaped my academic journey at BC. And like Emily and Amy, I figured out what I wanted to do from taking this course, because it just opened up my mind to so many other things that I could explore. I came into BC like really unsure about what I wanted to do, but I kind of thought maybe I would do pre-med, which was a bad idea for me. And I just knew I was interested in healthcare, but I didn't realize that how many different sides of healthcare there are, like Emily said. And taking this course, I realized how I'm much more interested in the law side and the policy side of healthcare. And I just think that this class was the perfect foundation, my first semester of my first year at BC, to get me thinking about different things that I would want to explore, and ultimately leading me to choosing a political science major and a global public health minor. And I don't think I would have thought to take a lot of the classes that I've taken since this course if I hadn't had this experience and just been exposed to all of these different ways that I could be interested in healthcare. It just never crossed my mind in high school. I went to a public high school and just took all the basic classes, and I never, I want to get into Pulse too when I talk about how it personally affected me, but I just was never exposed to such a wide variety of things that you could learn about life and academically also. And so personally, the core curriculum has very much affected me, not only this class, but with Pulse. I served at Haley House Soup Kitchen in South Boston, and they make meals that are very focused on being healthy and fresh. They have like a garden right on site, and then they also have a farm outside of Boston. And this experience just completely changed my perspective on life and the world in general, like just everything. It just opened my eyes to so many community issues, societal issues. It really got me out of my comfort zone. Growing up in like just a small town in Maine, volunteering in Boston was like a huge eye opener for me. It's a philosophy and theology class, and so I had never taken anything like that in high school, and it really helped me explore my faith and values and what's important to me. It helped me realize how service is important to me, and just helped me grow a lot personally. And so I understand when people think like, I don't want to take these classes, they don't have to do with my major, but I am a different person because of these classes that I had to take through the course. So I would encourage all students to have an open mind about them.
Let's turn for a moment to the things that are on the minds of members of our audience. So first of all, as a person who's recently gone through the whole process of figuring out where am I going to go after high school, how do I choose a college? Amy, what would you say turned out to be important of the things to be concerned about? And maybe some things that kind of you thought were big deals and perhaps are not.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I can remember just thinking back to my college decision process and how I finally landed on BC as the best fit for me. Is I thought about, what do the schools say their message is, and then did they have the evidence to back it up, right? So as Brian alluded to earlier, BC really focuses on this education of the whole person, or cura personalis, right? And at 18, I was like, what does that mean? Like, what the heck? And then I got to BC and I heard about these programs like the Enduring Question courses and Pulse, and I was like, oh, that's it. And so I registered for those courses, and it's pretty exciting, like to think back, like, oh, that's what I want to take, to now saying that's what I took. And it really did make me like Madison said, it's made me who I am today. So I think when it comes to Pulse and the Enduring Questions courses, it's far more about what you learn inside the classroom. I think I learned how to learn, right? And so the Enduring Questions courses truly do live up to their name of questions, right? So I learned how not only just the policies behind this or the economic principles that go into this pharmaceutical industry. Yes, we did learn that, and they were incredibly interesting. But instead, I learned how to ask a question that's going to further my knowledge. And that is a gift I have taken with me throughout the rest of my time at school, right? So when I then became a sophomore and I'm taking organic chemistry, and it's this big intimidating course with all of these pre-meds around you, I felt comfortable going up to my professor and saying, hey, I need help. And that's because of this course, not because of what we learned or the homework or the test that we had to take. It was about the connections that I made with the professors. So that brings me to my second point, what to look for when you're trying to pick your college is the enthusiasm of the professors. And I think you can see firsthand how excited Professor Reagan and Professor Turba are to teach this course. And that is something I will take with me forever, right? When they're excited, I'm excited, right? We did our homework simply because we wanted to do it for them. I never missed a reading because I didn't want to be behind in class because they were so excited to teach it. And I think that's the biggest thing I've taken with me to this day is find the excited teachers, find the professors who are truly going to fulfill the mission of the school.
Thank you. Madison, you mentioned that you came in as a pre-med or as a what were you going to be, a chemistry major, I think?
Biology.
You started out, you were going to be Madame Curie, and then it was like so not happening. So anyway, but I do know you started as one major and then switched. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And how did you choose? Not that you were locked in forever, but you seem like you're comfortable with your game plan. So how did you get there?
Yeah, I definitely went into college like really freaked out that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I really badly wanted to have a plan, and I was very worried about like wasting time, and I felt like it was such a good opportunity to be at BC, and I just wanted to have it all figured out. And I think I felt like I needed to do something really concrete, and something that everyone thinks of as like, oh, that's such a really good major, you're going to have such a good career. And my dad's a doctor, and I've always been interested in healthcare, so I just kind of jumped to pre-med, but not really realizing how much work that is if you're not really, really interested in it. And so I was a bio major, and I was taking bio and intro to chem and calc, and I was miserable. And my first week, I went into my advisor in tears, and I had her change all of my classes except for this enduring questions class. And I changed, and I took some econ classes and some math classes. But as this semester went on, I just like really started to realize how interesting I found like policy and law, especially surrounding healthcare, to be. And I also in high school, I was like very much a math and science person, and I didn't like reading. I was really slow reader, and I thought I was really bad at it. And so I was like very nervous about trying to be a political science major, but I realized that I was very interested in it. So I eventually switched to political science, and then this year added the global public health minor. And I don't think that I really knew in high school, like I just didn't think about things like public health and political science because I just had the very basic high school education. But this enduring questions class just really, really opened my mind to, like I said before, all the different ways that you can look at healthcare, all the different things that go into it. And now, like most of my homework is reading, but I really like it because I'm really interested in it. And it's so much better. Like it's so much better than struggling through a chem or a bio class that I'm not interested in. And so I really think that the core, one of the best things about the core is it can, even if you think that you know what you're going to do, it can just really help you explore and figure out what else there is, because there is so much more in college than there is in high school. And it's led me to have some really cool experiences outside of school. I was an intern for U.S. Senator Susan Collins last summer, and this summer I'm an intern for my local DA's office. So now I'm like learning so many things that I really credit to taking this class freshman year and opening my mind to things that I didn't know about before. And I'm very comfortable in my major and my minor, and I'm so excited to start the minor because I haven't actually taken any courses for it yet.
That's awesome. We're going to go to questions from the audience in a moment, but I just want to say, as a parent who's been through this experience, whenever I see parents face to face, I always say to the parent, we will take good care of your child. And it's not just from a sense of responsibility. We care so much about them. I mean, Tracy, I am like not a sweet, nice person at all, but I light up when I see my students. I just love them. And I always say, I don't come here for the faculty meetings. I come here for the students. We will take good care of your child. And being at the law school, I've had so many BC undergrads come over to the law school, and each and every one has been great, just great. So anyway, I guess we're ready for questions from the audience, John?
Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to invite Professor Garreau back in. And one of the things that came up, it was just a wonderful presentation, and I obviously wish that I could go back and take
Me too.
these short
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely.
They're phenomenal. But one of the things that came in is that struck me is the reflection activities. And Professor Garreau was communicating with me through the chat box here, and wanted to talk about some of the other kinds of reflection activities that happen in other core renewal courses, because that seems to be an integral part of this course. Brian?
Yeah, it's an important part of all of the enduring questions and complex problems courses that we have. And you know, it's related to another question that came from the audience about what makes our core distinctive from other Jesuit cores. Frankly, part of it, I think, is the expense that we put towards complex problems and enduring questions courses. We've built a number of courses around engaging with real-world contemporary problems and asking long-term enduring questions, both from interdisciplinary perspectives. So the fact that we're asking faculty members to share the classroom or to share courses is something almost unprecedented even in the liberal arts. It's a really distinctive aspect. And then we provide the faculty with a budget to do interesting things with their students. So each of the classes has a bunch of reflection sessions, and the faculty can do what they want with their students with those funds. So yoga workshops and yoga experiences is one of them. We also have professors that bring in meditation experts to do different meditation practices with their students. Some faculty will do reflective journaling with the students throughout the semester. We have faculty that do e-media fasts with their students, so they'll take away phones, and students begrudgingly will do this, but after the fact they journal about it and reflect on it. It becomes a really powerful experience. We have a course on migration that shows students old objects. This is a history course, and they ask them to write narratives about the journey that those objects have taken. We have another course that's taught in the English department on literature that was developed during the Middle Ages. Students will make a book as they did during the Middle Ages using the same materials that were available to them. We have students that go to the Museum of Fine Arts in downtown Boston. We have a faculty member who teaches in the Earth and Environmental Science department that takes students to Cape Cod, and they look at the ways in which the ocean side has changed over time in developed areas versus less developed areas. And then she has the students over to her house for dinner. So that's a real highlight of that course. Walden Pond is right down the road in my town of Concord. We have several classes that take their students to Walden Pond, students that have read Henry David Thoreau's work and related works. We often have the BC Career Center come in, and that's even useful for first-year students to think about how this material is important to them and what they might do in the future. We've had panels of veterans come in to talk about their experiences in war. The list really goes on, but this is certainly one of the highlights of these courses, is to have that opportunity for faculty and students to engage outside the classroom in these interesting ways.
Thank you, Brian. Professor Regan and Emily want to chime in here, I know, with an additional thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on a couple of things and go a step further. So to the point that Marianne was saying in terms of faculty caring about your students, I think I'll just let Emily kind of chime in on the other direction of the relationship, but I will say that Emily actually got to travel with me last summer for a class I taught abroad. And the one quote she had about the experience, it was a class that compared the healthcare system in the United States to that of the French system and that of the UK. So we spent a month together, nobody knew one another, and any anxiety over that was like immediately dissipated. And Emily's quote was, well, of course it was going to be good. We're all BC students. And I think that very much struck the nail on the head. I've taught at other universities, and I will tell you, the households that you know, these students have grown up in, what they've done in terms of their life, their academics. They're exceptional young people. I wish I was 25 years younger and I could be best friends with them all because they're such awesome people. So if Emily maybe wants to even talk the other direction quickly, I'd love for her to just chime in.
Yeah, I think I just really need to give credit to the Enduring Questions program and Professor Regan and Professor Churba. From day one, it was so obvious to me how much they cared and how unique this experience was. It is not every day that you will be in a yoga class next to your professor in Warrior One or out to dinner or watching a movie. Like, this was really a unique experience for me and something that I knew I wanted to hold on to throughout my next few years. And I think that really shows how much of an impact these two professors had on myself and all of us. Following summer after the class, I went abroad with Professor Regan. Next semester, I'm taking global health law with Professor Churba, and I know multiple other students have. And I think that definitely just demonstrates how amazing the relationships you're able to build with this unique opportunity. Just want to give one more example, but I was working on a project for one of my classes, and we had to write choose an organization and write a report on it. So I emailed Professor Churba and Professor Regan and said, hi, do you guys have any public health organizations that you think would be good for this? Immediate response, Emily, it's so good to hear from you. We miss you. Professor Churba sent 10 different links of organizations, and I ended up doing my project on Doctors Without Borders. And I could think of a million more examples, but these two professors, and I'm sure a lot of people have other different experiences, have really shaped my experience academically and personally at BC. And I'm just really grateful and lucky that I ended up in this class and BC. Go Eagles.
You're still our students. The course might end, but you're still our students. So
Absolutely. Thanks,
stuck
Emily.
with us. Yeah.
Emily and Tracy. As the discussion was going on about the core renewal course, which was so interesting, one of the students mentioned the Pulse program, which has an interesting parallel, I think, to core renewal. It is certainly one way to also fulfill core curriculum requirements. Would one of the students or more than one of the students be willing to talk about the Pulse program and what a wonderful illustration it is of Boston College's Jesuit philosophy and the opportunities that it gives students both in the classroom and outside of the classroom?
I can start.
Oh,
You want to start, Amy?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
So I actually heard about the Pulse program when John Mahoney actually came to speak at my high school back when I was a senior, and he talked about this class, and he was like, yeah, like they send you into the city of Boston twice a week. And I was like, for credit? Like, what? Then I get to BC and I learn about this wonderful program called Pulse. So it's kind of an inside out classroom kind of situation. So it's 6 credits, but 2 semesters. So a total of 12 credits. So it's a full year-long course. You stay with the same professor for the whole academic year, and you meet in the classroom as if it's one class. So for instance, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 for an hour, right? But then the other component is you do service. So Emily and I, like I talked about earlier, went into the St. Francis House Foot Clinic for 4 hours twice a week. You take public transportation. They really encourage you to take public transportation. They give you a free Charlie card to take the T into the city. And you do that for a full year. So from September on, you go to the same placement with the same people, and you form these connections not only in your class, where there's also reflections, like the Enduring Questions courses. Pulse also has an additional reflection class, but you build connections with the people. Like it goes from inside BC to taking BC's mission outside of BC, and you're making these connections with, for instance, Emily and I worked with nurses or AmeriCorps fellows, and even the patients themselves. I made lasting relationships with them, and it broke my heart to leave them in March when we got sent home. But those are the kinds of relationships you build in Pulse, and it just builds on the foundation in the Enduring Question courses.
Great. I might also ask another question. Anybody else can feel free to chime in with questions as well. But you know, these courses just strike me as courses that really respond to students who are who want to be engaged with societal challenges, political challenges facing the world today. And we're right now in a phase where we're dealing with COVID-19. We're dealing with the financial fallout that is affecting so many families because of it. And of course, in recent weeks, racial tension in this country has just exploded, and it's bringing this issue to the forefront for us all, and really forcing us to think about, ponder these questions in ways that we perhaps should have been doing a long time ago. Could I ask the students a little bit? You know, you've lived the Boston College experience. You've been on campus. How politically engaged are students? How socially engaged are students? What have you observed? What have you witnessed? What's the culture, the milieu on the BC campus as you've experienced it in terms of social, political, economic issues affecting the student body?
I think it really stems down to the mission of Boston College, men and women for others. And I think I've just seen that in every single aspect of Boston College, clubs, academically, just walking around campus. The student body is really passionate, and nobody's afraid to share their opinions, share their voice, and you really get a sense of that inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. And I'm just constantly amazed by how many different clubs and organizations and kind of people rally around this idea that we have this platform at Boston College to speak out against things that we are passionate about, whether it be homeless foot clinics or political issues. There's definitely a lot of activity. I would say almost every single person I've met is engaged socially, economically, and politically about these issues.
Yeah, I would add just.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Amy. I'm always amazed at. I was so amazed this year as a Pulse student at how many of my friends. Three of my roommates also did Pulse. Both Amy and Emily did Pulse. Like, it's just amazing to me how many students at BC go out of their way to get involved with service, and how, like, in the past couple months, through COVID and all of the recent racial incidents going on in our country, how students have reached out to me and just been like, what do you think about this? And how have you been feeling about this? And people are so willing and ready to have real conversations about real things going on. And I haven't experienced that anywhere else but BC to the same level of how much people care and how much people want to check in with each other, serve others. And I really do believe that men and women for others is very present in the student body at BC.
Amy, did you have something that you wanted to say as well?
Yeah, just one real quick thing. Obviously, we've all seen in the news of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I can say, you follow all of these different clubs and organizations on Instagram, and I can say almost all, I think pretty much anyone I follow they've made these wonderful statements about how they're going to be more inclusive, and they've laid out, not only do they say, oh, we're going to be inclusive and we're going to make everyone feel welcome, they then lay out agendas, like how are we going to do this? And I myself am the vice president of Boston College EMS, and we thought about this. So we reached out to the Ahana Center and asked to do a diversity training right when we get back in September. And of course, they were more than willing to do so. And so I think not only do Boston College students have the virtues, they act upon their virtues through service.
Wonderful. We're coming up on 4 minutes away from 7 o'clock. And since this is an audience of prospective applicants to Boston College, all of you survived this college admission process somehow, some way. You survived it well, and you've distinguished yourselves here at Boston College, and certainly this evening. If you could, in closing, provide one piece of advice as you think about your process and how you navigated it, one piece of advice that you could impart to the prospective students about how to approach their process, especially under these adverse circumstances. They're not going to have campus visits the way that you had, but if you could each leave them with one great piece of advice, that would be a nice way to end our program. And just take yourselves off mute if you want to.
I can't even imagine how hard it is to not have campus visits, because I know that I just really wanted to walk around and feel the atmosphere of the colleges I went to. But I would say, as much as you can, I mean, through these Zoom meetings and stuff like this, if you're doing these at other schools too, just pay attention to the atmosphere and the kind of people that talk, that speak, and that you kind of meet, not really, but that you get to see on Zoom. And go with your gut with what feels right, as hard as that is during all of this. But I would definitely encourage you to try to go to these Zoom things and just feel out the kind of people you'll be around, because I think it really makes all the difference.
Well, to echo Madison's point, we've got 3 remarkable faculty members who have given up their time on a summer evening. I think that speaks volumes about the commitment of the Boston College community to students. Emily or Amy, could you bring us home here with maybe one piece of advice for our audience? Thinking back to that painful process that you went through a couple of years ago?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I can remember the day that I decided to go to BC, or I was picking between a bunch of schools, and it was a very stressful time, right? And I was thinking back to all of the visits I had done. And the thing that stuck with me the most is I realized that BC was going to educate me like my whole person, not just the pre-med element, or not just the what I thought would be psychology, flip back to econ, back to psychology major element of me. The whole person, through service, through Pulse, through the Enduring Questions classes. I knew I was going to come out of it a more mature and educated person, not a more educated pre-med student. Yeah.
That's great, Amy. Thank you.
I honestly would just say, take a deep breath. Like, I was the oldest kid and my parents had no idea what they were doing. There were so many tiers, like applied to so many schools. And at the end of the day, like, from experience, I genuinely believe you got to trust the process and just recognize what is most important to you and trust your gut. And you, even though it is really unfortunate that tours and panels aren't a thing, just talk to people that go to the schools you're applying to. I know anyone at BC would be more than willing to have a phone call, a conversation about what it's like, and just, it's okay. Like, it's going to be okay. And it all works out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just to echo those great pieces of advice, yeah, we are challenged as an admission office to interact with you, but we are offering programs such as this one. 1 week from today at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have a special session on the new major that we will introduce in the fall of 2021. Human-centered engineering will be the first time that Boston College offers engineering. So you can go to our website and you can register for that session next Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We are doing daily information sessions. They are live. Many of you, I'm sure, have watched those already. But to Emily's last point, we also have 18 current Boston College students working with us this summer. And you can go to our website and you can schedule a personal conversation with a Boston College undergraduate student. In the absence of the kind of programming that we usually offer, in the absence of being able to walk around the campus and stop people and simply have conversations, we are giving you that opportunity to have a nice one-on-one conversation with a Boston College undergraduate student. We do empathize with you. We know this is difficult, but we're going to try to provide you as many resources as we can to help you learn about Boston College. And I know that my colleagues at other colleges and universities are doing the same. We're all in this together. As Emily said so eloquently, take a deep breath. This will work out. The challenges that you're facing now, you will overcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We wish you an enjoyable summer, a relaxing summer with your family. Good luck with your senior year or your junior year if you're a rising junior. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.